Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to do something a little bit different, but honestly, incredibly fascinating. We're diving straight into the pages of a primary school science workbook. And you might be wondering, why on earth are we looking at a child's homework? Well, as we go through this, we're going to uncover how these seemingly basic lessons actually outline the fundamental and surprisingly profound building blocks of human civilization. We're stripping away all the complexity of our modern world to look at the raw, absolute foundations of how society operates.
Just look at this charming, handwritten answer. The question simply asks for reasons why we need to travel, and the student wrote, to go anywhere we want. What's really interesting about this is how perfectly it captures our innate human desire. Before you get into infrastructure or complex economics, there is simply that raw psychological drive to move, to explore, and to break out of our immediate surroundings. That raw desire, it's literally the engine of civilization.
So, to see how we built an entire world around that desire, here's our roadmap for today. First, how we move. Second, the airport protocol. Third, staying connected. And fourth, safety first. Let's get into it.
Section 1. How we move.
This simple historical progression really puts things into perspective, mapping out our incredible journey as a species. Around 1,000 years ago, early humans traveled almost entirely on foot. Then, after a while, we figured out how to harness animals: horses, camels, elephants. Next came the absolute game changer, the invention of the wheel, bringing us carts and carriages. And nowadays, we rely on incredibly fast vehicles with engines. In just 4 simple steps, this workbook summarizes millennia of human engineering and ambition.
As our capabilities evolved, we structured all this transit into these complex webs across land, water, and air. And what's great here is how it illustrates the practical choices we make every day. When asked which means of transport are most popular, the student correctly pointed out public transport, like buses and trains. And their reasoning? Written in their own handwriting? Because the rent of bus is very low and it is easily available. I love that. It's a perfectly simple economic rationale for why we have public infrastructure.
All right, to keep our minds sharp, let's do a rapid-fire transport quiz straight from the workbook's pages. As our vehicles got faster and faster, we eventually left the Earth entirely, right? So, do you happen to know what the first animal in space was?
If you guessed a Russian dog named Laika, you nailed it. It's actually super fascinating to see this massive mid-20th century space race milestone cemented as foundational knowledge for kids today.
Let's try one more trivia question from the assignment, just to give us some perspective on the sheer scale of how we move today. Which nation boasts the longest road network in the entire world?
Yep, the answer is the USA. And honestly, this is a massive testament to the scale of modern land infrastructure. We have quite literally paved our planet to ensure that, just like the student wrote earlier, we can truly go anywhere we want.
Moving right along to Section 2, the airport protocol. Having conquered the land, let's look up at the sky. We all know international airports can be a totally daunting, high-stress nightmare, but the source here brilliantly breaks down that complex system into simple, logical steps for kids. Book your ticket, pack your bags, check in to get them weighed, walk through security, down the tunnel, and eventually check out at your destination. It takes this massive logistical puzzle and turns it into a comforting, orderly checklist. It really highlights how society functions by breaking monumental tasks down into manageable protocols.
The student's notes also highlight the strict rules of air travel, pointing out things like keep seatbelts fastened, listen to the safety briefing. This is such a great reminder of a fundamental societal trade-off, With advanced speed and incredible technology comes the absolute necessity for rigorous compliance. We collectively agree to follow the rules so that the miracle of human flight actually works.
Which brings us to Section 3, staying connected.
So, what happens when the distance is too great or we just physically cannot travel? We pivot to communication. This checklist from the workbook shows the sheer variety of communication tools we use over a lifetime. It maps everything from the most primal form, body language, all the way up to handwritten letters, SMS, and modern social media. It's this fantastic overview of exactly how we bridge the gap between human minds when our physical bodies have to stay put.
And there's this really fascinating conceptual tension presented here when looking at the evolution of mass media. The workbook asks the student to directly contrast the internet with the newspaper. The student notes that the internet gives the latest news instantly on phones and tablets, whereas the newspaper gives the previous day's news in a printed form. It so perfectly highlights the modern shift from delayed physical information to instant digital gratification.
Get this, it even details the nuances of older, transitional tech. Look at the breakdown of a fax machine versus a landline.
The student explains how a landline is just for talking, but a fax machine is for sending letters and photos, specifically noting that it requires internet and has a scanner. It is so interesting getting a peek into how a modern child conceptualizes legacy technology through the lens of today's hyper-digital world.
All right, our final section, number 4, safety first.
Because obviously all of this rapid movement requires societal rules to keep us alive. These visual juxtapositions are super telling. They frame incredibly common, simple actions, like crossing the street or waiting for a bus, as perilous journeys that require strict adherence to protocol. In our modern built environment, just stepping off the curb means you're interacting with heavy machinery, and these visuals really drive the stakes home.
The student distills the absolute chaos of modern transit into these golden rules for survival. Look right, left, right. Always use the zebra crossing. Wear bright clothes. Don't bother the driver. What we're looking at here is the literal baseline for the social contract of the road. If we don't collectively agree to abide by these super simple bullet points, the entire system of modern transportation just collapses into danger.
And this stark handwritten list? It's a powerful reminder of where the true danger actually lies. When asked why road accidents happen, the student didn't blame the cars or the roads. No, they blamed careless driving, tiredness, going very fast, and not following rules. It shows that the primary threats to our safety aren't the incredible machines we've built, but human error and the willful breaking of that social contract.
Okay, let's tie this all together. What looks like primary school homework is actually a profound and surprisingly accurate summary of civilization itself. Think about it for a second. At our core, we are utterly driven to move and explore. And when we can't move, we are desperate to communicate and connect. To do all of this without completely destroying ourselves, we are entirely reliant on shared rules and protocols to survive.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. As our world continues to accelerate and technology evolves at breakneck speed, with AI, hyperloops, commercial spaceflight, will the core human desires that built these foundational systems ever actually change? Or are we, at the end of the day, just upgrading the vehicles we use to get there? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep questioning the basics, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.